This is the Tallahassee Business Podcast, bringing you engaging conversations with influential members of the community that you need to know. This episode is brought to you by The Health Network. The Health Network is an innovative advertising platform with more than 30 digital monitors and almost a dozen different medical waiting rooms throughout Tallahassee. With a diverse mix of medical practices, The Health Network provides advertisers unmatched visibility to a highly engaged audience while directly connecting with target consumers through static and video ads. To learn how your business can effectively reach over 60,000 patients and guests per month, visit thnadvertising.com.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Sue Dick with the Chamber of Commerce bringing to you our podcast, and I'm very excited for this conversation because we are getting heated in the midst of election season, and we're lucky to have Mark Earley here with us. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here, Sue. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Well, you know, this is getting into the season, and I think before we jump into what it means for our community, I think we need to recognize you as our Supervisor of Elections, and congratulations on being elected back in 2016. But this is a very important office, and we're lucky to have you. You have been in that office for 30 years prior to being elected, and maybe just share with us what that's meant, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor to serve, and really it's a passion of mine. I never expected to get into elections, but when I did, I became hooked, and that really seems to be a common thread amongst all election officials. You really feel like you're doing something really important for your nation, making sure everyone's vote counts, because that's how our voices are heard and how we frame our government. So, I was elected in 2016 after 30 years in elections in the tech side and actually in the vendor side. Recently was elected as the president of our association, and also serve as the chairman of our Cybersecurity committee, worked very closely with the Secretary of State's, the new Secretary of State, Cord Bird, and I've had several good meetings. So that's very promising going forward. And I'm on the executive committee for the federal level of election security and cybersecurity. So that's actually been a very rewarding experience, being able to have input there.
Well, and I want to take maybe just a step back and to really emphasize you're president of the Supervisor of Elections, Inc., which basically that's of the 67 counties, you're president of that association. So that's an honor.
It's an honor, and it's very busy.
It is busy. Well, the cybersecurity is a thing, and I think for our listeners, maybe something that you can share with them to really emphasize how much their vote matters and all of the pieces in place, and especially in Leon County.
I think, Florida, frankly, does lead the way in, I think, election cybersecurity. After 2016, there were some hints that a few counties came close to potentially have been hacked into. I hate to use that word, but actually that did not actually happen. But what that did was it really framed the importance of building the frameworks and the partnerships with our state partners and a lot of different federal agencies that have a lot more resources to bring to bear on the concept of cybersecurity and just security in general. So we've spent the last 5 years really building those partnerships. Florida was the first state to go statewide as members of what's called the EII-SAC, which I'm now on the executive committee of, to implement a lot of different aspects of security. One that's well known is the Albert sensors, where it really monitors the traffic in and out of our networks, looking for any kind of a problem. It's monitored at the federal level with a 24/7 response capability. So, and we get a lot of alerts because people are always trying to break in. We have very good and very robust security procedures in place and software packages to make sure that we're safe. But, it's a never-ending game. We're always having to see what's out there, see what the latest threats are, and always be able to respond at the drop of a hat.
Well, and I think we're going to touch a little bit on the local race because we want to make sure that our community gets out and vote. But you have a gubernatorial race this year.
We do.
And
yes.
and then obviously in 2 years we'll be ramping up with the presidential. But anything, and being the capital city, anything different or unique when those type of ballot items occur?
Florida, ever since 2000, and I remember the recounts very well. I have some scars from that, but really Leon County, we shined, what's the proper tense there, in our ability to get votes counted accurately, and I think that has led to a lot of changes, not only statewide, that kind of modeled what we did here in Leon County, but really nationally. Our ability to do training. We've got a very professional group of administrators here in Florida. And with the, as you say, Leon County is the capital county of Florida, and being the focal point for elections really nationwide and internationally, because we're always the pivot point, like in 2000. The eyes are always on us here.
Right.
And so we have a big need to be extremely professional and kind of lead the way, and I think we're proud that we can do that.
Well, we're proud of that as well. I think for our listeners, they want to know what dates are coming up, and let's make sure we flag that. So if you can touch on that and really walk us through why that matters so much and why it's important for people to take note.
Sure, absolutely. So the first election, and it's actually right in the middle of the summer, it's August 23rd, and it's called the primary election. But that's frankly a bit of a misnomer. The city commission elections are on there. Those are nonpartisan. County commission elections, school board, there's a lot of offices up for election. Judicial races will be on the ballot then. So there's a lot of nonpartisan races that nonpartisan voters should actually participate in. And this is not just a prelude necessarily to the general. In some ways it is, but it's also the decision point for some of the races. There could easily be city commission races that are decided in the August primary election.
And how does that, by how? How would that occur?
Yeah, so the city races used to be held in February. We used to have two elections in February, the regular municipal and then the municipal runoff. And those were put on the ballot and piggyback on with our regular fall election. So the regular municipal election is actually on the primary ballot for city residents. So if there's only two candidates running, they will be on the primary, and absolutely one of them will win. If there's a race with more than two candidates, if somebody gets more than 50%, they would win in the primary, and that would be your only opportunity to vote. If there's more than two candidates and nobody gets over 50%, then the top two vote getters in those city elections would go on to the general election.
Right. So I think it's important for individuals when they see that ballot and they see if there's just two people there, pay attention to it and get out and vote in August.
Absolutely.
Because you may not get a chance in November.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
If you want your voice to be heard, especially in the city election races, make sure you're voting.
Okay. We have 3 seats up we have 2 commission seats and a mayoral race on the city side.
Yes, it's a busy ballot, a lot on the ballot.
And then on the county commission, we have 4 seats that are up on the county.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I interrupted you. You were running through a list of dates that are important, so we'll keep going in that.
Okay, yes. So the August 23rd election, the early voting period starts Saturday, August 13th, and runs through August 21st. So that's the early voting period, and we really encourage people to get out and vote in person at the early voting sites, but don't wait till Election Day. We always consider Election Day as your last chance to vote. The last chance or last day to either get registered or to make party changes to your registration in advance of the primary is on July 25th. That's called book closing. It's 29 days out from the election. Some other big important dates after the 2020 election, the ramp up in the amount of vote by mail activity in Leon County and really statewide and nationwide skyrocketed. So on July 14th, we're sending out 67,000 vote by mail ballots to voters throughout our community so that they will have their ballot in hand. And again, as we said in 2020, that's really more like an insurance policy. You can absolutely, as soon as you get it, you can vote it and send it right back to our office, and we'll be counting your votes. Those are the first votes to get counted, to the vote by mail ballots. But if you're unsure, you might want to go to the polls later on. You can just kind of hold on to that, and if nothing goes wrong, you can certainly show up and vote early or vote on Election Day. But if you find out that you need to use that vote by mail, fill it out. You can bring it by our office, take it to one of our secure ballot intake stations at an early voting site, or mail it back to us. But give yourself plenty of time to mail it if you do that.
Is there a deadline where the mail-in ballot has to be received in your office? What's
Absolutely.
That deadline?
Yes, we have to have the ballots in our office by 7 p.m. Election Day.
Okay. All right. So, and you can drop it off. You can actually drop off your mail-in ballot at one of the sites by Election Day.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Our early
Very
voting
good.
sites have those secure drop boxes.
Okay. Any other key dates we want to emphasize when talking about general?
Okay, the general election is actually on November 8th this year. It's a little later than usual, but that's because November 1st is on a Tuesday. So November 8th is the general. Again, the last chance to vote for that election. Our early voting starts on October 24th and runs through November 6th. That's a longer period for early voting because the turnout's usually dramatically higher. And then the book closing date or the last chance to get registered for that election, if you're a new registrant, is October 11th.
Okay. As far as you've been doing this now 36 years,
Long time.
what are some of the things that people are thinking about or just misconceptions or just false information that you want to clarify?
Sure, yeah. Every year we get the question or concern that vote by mail ballots only get counted when it's a close race or they're not secure. Vote by mail ballots are absolutely secure. They are the first ballots we count. I've been voting by mail since 1992, although I usually drop it off at our office. The other thing is that we don't do audits in Florida. We've been hearing a lot since 2020 and all the controversies around 2020. We're all familiar with that Florida really needs to audit our elections, and people are extremely upset that we're not doing it. We do it. We're one of the first states in the nation to do audits. Some of the most comprehensive audits, frankly, and we're proud of this, started here in Leon County. We essentially recount every single ballot with 2 different certified systems. And that second system can either be the post-election audit, which it usually is, or if there's a recount, we now had state law, and then Secretary of State, actually the new Secretary of State, sponsored the bill in 2020 to allow our audit system, which is certified by the state and at the federal level, to be a means to do our recounts for elections. So, and it's a very transparent, very accurate, and it's a second system checking the first system. So we do, and you can always go back to the paper. We always have paper ballots. That's the key point. And that's our document of record. And all of this is just a way to determine voter intent from the paper. But if it's uncertain, we can always go back and get that from the paper ballot.
Okay. We had some redistricting occur for our voters. Anything you can flag that's not a surprise for them? They may think they're voting for someone in another district, potentially?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Certainly redistricting was a bit controversial this year, as it always is. It was in the courts later than usual, so that's been a bit of a scramble for all the counties. I think, this is my 5th redistricting. I can't even believe I'm saying that. So we have it down, I think, fairly well here in Leon County, but we're about to send out new voter information cards to all registered voters in Leon County starting next week. The biggest thing I would suggest is look at the addresses that are actually on your card. Make sure your residence address especially is correct, and if it's not, call our office and let us know. And also your polling place may well have changed. So most of the changes we've made, I think, are improvements to the ability, to the convenience of where that location is compared to people's houses. So, make sure you're familiar with that, especially if you're going to wait till election day to vote. But also, like you say, the districts that represent different addresses, really, a lot of those have changed. So familiarize yourself. If you used to go in and voting for one candidate, especially at the state level, state house or state senate, or potentially at the congressional level, those districts did change quite a bit in Leon County, especially the state house and the congressional seats. So don't be surprised if things have changed, but make sure your residence address is proper with us, and if there's not, let us know so that we can make sure that everything's okay.
That's great information. I'm trying to think back on the ballot. Are there, other than candidates, any ballot items that are on there that people need to be aware of? Do a little bit of homework ahead of time?
So for the primary, there are no initiatives, but I think there'll be 3 initiatives that we expect to be on the general election. And frankly, I can't even name those off the top of my head because there's been so much controversy about, especially the gambling initiatives. But I think most of those did not make the ballot. But yeah, do your homework. We'll have a lot more information coming out. We'll be sending election guides prior to each election closer in, and they'll list all of the amendments for the general election. Okay.
And if people want more information, what's the best website they can go to?
leonvotes.gov, www.leonvotes, leonvotes.gov. And you can always call our phone. It's 850-606-VOTE or 606-8683.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks again. You obviously, this is not just a job for you. It's a passion based on what you said. Any closing comments or anything you want our community to hear?
Yeah, well, really the importance of voting, especially in that primary. It's notoriously low. We actually have some of the higher turnouts, but so many things could be decided in that primary election, and you'll miss your opportunity to have your voice heard. So really get out and vote in the primary.
Well, thank you, Mark.
My pleasure, Sue. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.